The Man They Couldn't Tame by Jansen Davies. Chapter 1. Sharpe Entry. The stars above Cyrex 8 shimmered like broken promises, beautiful, distant, and best avoided. Jonathan Sharpe, rogue pilot and professional nuisance, banked hard to port as a patrol cruiser sliced through the asteroid field behind him. His ship, the Indecent Proposal, groaned with the strain of illegal cargo and questionable upgrades. "Evasive pattern Delta 7, he barked to his ship's AI, a voice that sounded suspiciously like a bored bartender. "Executing," the AI replied. "Also, you're overdue for a shower." Sharpe smirked. "I'll bathe in credits once we unload this haul." The cruiser fired a warning shot. Sharpe rolled the ship through a narrow gap between two tumbling asteroids, one of which bore the faded insignia of a long-dead mining colony. He punched the throttle, and the Indecent Proposal surged forward, slipping into the shadow of a derelict freighter. "Lost them," the AI confirmed. "For now." Sharpe leaned back in his seat, boots on the console, and exhaled. Gatheria next, royal planet. Fancy food, loose laws, and if memory serves, green-skinned women with attitude. The AI beeped. "You've been banned from 3 Gatherian casinos and 1 royal gala." "Details," Sharpe said. "Besides, I've got goods to move and charm to weaponize." He landed on Gatheria under a false registry. Diplomatic courier, Class C. The customs officer barely glanced at his papers before waving him through. Sharpe tipped him with a smile and a bottle of contraband whiskey. The city of Tharnis spread out before him, a gleaming sprawl of marble towers and floating gardens. The palace loomed at its center, a monument to indulgence and inherited power. Sharpe walked the streets like he owned them, cloak billowing, boots polished, grin calibrated for maximum mischief. He didn't notice the royal guards until they surrounded him. "Jonathan Sharpe," one said, voice flat. "By order of King Thorn, your ship and cargo are hereby seized." Sharpe raised an eyebrow. "On what charge?" "Being flamboyant," another guard muttered. They marched him through the palace gates, past fountains that sang and statues that judged. Inside, the throne room shimmered with gold and ego. King Tharn sat atop a dais, flanked by his twin daughters, Princess Velva and Princess Ninal. Both were stunning, green-skinned, and radiating the kind of energy that made empires nervous. Sharpe bowed with theatrical flair. "Your Majesty, ladies, to what do I owe the pleasure?" Velva leaned forward. "I want him." Ninal scoffed. "You always want what I want. I saw him first," Velva replied. "You got the last one," Ninal argued. "The last one wasn't even worth having." The king sighed. "Must we do this every time?" Sharpe blinked. "Do what?" "Choose," Ninal said. "Which of us you'll belong to?" Sharpe straightened. "Belong?" Velva smiled. "Not as a husband. As a pet." The throne room fell silent. Sharpe grinned. "I'm flattered. But I'm more of a free-range species." The king waved a jeweled hand. "You'll choose one. Or the dungeon." Sharpe's eyes flicked between the sisters. Rebellion burned behind their eyes. They weren't interested in love. They wanted leverage, status, victory. He smiled wider. "Then let the games begin." Chapter 2. Palace Games. Jonathan Sharpe had been given a suite in the east wing of the Gatherian palace, an architectural fever dream of floating balconies, sentient curtains, and a bidet that offered unsolicited political commentary. The room was absurdly luxurious, but Sharpe knew better than to mistake comfort for safety. He was a hostage wrapped in silk. The princesses had begun their campaign. Princess Velva sent him a breakfast tray carved from meteorite, topped with aphrodisiac fruit and a note that read, "Eat well. You'll need your strength." Princess Ninal responded with a live hologram performance of her favorite war poem, recited by a choir of cloned philosophers. Her note read, "I hope you like brains with your beauty." Sharpe, ever the opportunist, wrote thank you notes to both, each laced with subtle contradictions. He complimented Velva's commanding presence and Ninal's strategic elegance, knowing full well they'd compare notes. The palace staff began whispering. Was he playing them or being played? He requested increasingly ridiculous luxuries, a gravity-neutral hammock, a pet moon mouse, a robe woven from the hair of extinct diplomats. The servants complied, terrified of offending either princess. One guard fainted after being asked to polish Sharpe's boots with imported starlight. Intrigue by design. Sharpe spent his days wandering the palace, mapping its rhythms. He discovered a servants' corridor that bypassed the throne room and led directly to the royal vault, a meditation chamber where the king screamed into pillows shaped like his daughters, a secret garden where Velva practiced knife dancing and Ninal plotted theoretical coups. He began planting rumors like seeds in fertile soil. To a maid, Ninal said Velva's fashion sense was inspired by swamp algae. To a guard, Velva thinks Ninal's military tactics are better suited for children's birthday parties. To the chef, the king's allergic to spices. Just saying. By week's end, the palace was a hive of paranoia. The sisters began spying on each other. The advisors held emergency meetings about emotional containment protocols. The king complained that his food tasted bland, and he developed a nervous tic that made his crown tilt sideways. Sharpe, meanwhile, lounged in his gravity hammock, dictating memoirs to his shipboard AI, the double proposal. One morning, Velva stormed into his suite wearing a ceremonial battle gown and holding a bouquet of venomous flowers. "I've decided," she said. "We'll marry. You'll be all mine." An hour later, Ninal arrived with a legal contract and a bottle of celebratory plasma wine. "I've decided," she said. "We'll marry. You'll be only mine." Sharpe blinked. "Ladies, I'm honored, but I'm not sure I'm emotionally equipped for a duel to the death." The sisters stared at each other. Then, in a moment of cosmic absurdity, they agreed. "We'll share him," they said in unison. Sharpe smiled. "Well, that's efficient." The king screamed into a pillow shaped like a diplomatic treaty. Chapter 3. The Pilot's Playground. Jonathan Sharpe had been in the palace for less than a week, and already the staff treated him like a minor deity with mood swings. The guards bowed, the chefs panicked, the advisors whispered his name like it was a curse wrapped in silk. He'd mastered the art of being indispensable. Every request he made was fulfilled with trembling urgency, not because he was royalty, but because offending him meant offending the princesses, and offending the princesses meant diplomatic suicide. Sharpe had become the gravitational center of Gatheria's most dysfunctional family. Indulgence as strategy. He began each morning with a breakfast that defied physics, levitating pastries, quantum-infused coffee, and a side of existential fruit that changed flavor depending on your mood. He requested a robe made from the feathers of extinct sky serpents. It arrived within hours. His suite expanded daily. One morning he asked for a meditation pool. By sunset, he had a lagoon with bioluminescent koi that whispered affirmations. The next day, he requested a personal bard. He was given 3, each trained in sarcasm, seduction, and interpretive dance. Sharpe didn't need any of it, but indulgence was leverage. Every fulfilled whim reminded the palace who held the reins. Divide and conquer. He played the sisters like rival empires. To Velva, he whispered that Ninal had called her a decorative strategist. To Ninal, he hinted that Velva thought her poetry was emotionally flat. Neither quote was true. Both were effective. He staged casual encounters, accidentally bumping into Velva in the royal archives, where he praised her intellect. Later, he got lost in the war room, where Ninal was planning a mock invasion of a neighboring moon. He admired her ruthlessness. Each sister believed she was taming him. Each grew more possessive. The palace staff began wearing neutral colors to avoid being seen as partisan. The king cracks. King Thorn, once a symbol of stoic authority, had become a walking cautionary tale. He muttered to himself in the hallways. He held emergency meetings with his pet lizard. He tried to order more spices from the kitchens, only to be overruled by both daughters. Sharpe, meanwhile, had begun hosting salons in his suite, gatherings of poets, spies, and disgraced nobles. They discussed philosophy, fashion, and the merits of marrying into madness. Sharpe listened, smiled, and took notes. He was building a network, not of allies, but of pawns. The vault beneath. Late one night, Sharpe slipped into the servants' corridor behind the tapestry of Queen Thorn's third wedding. He followed it to a hidden chamber beneath the throne room, a vault filled with confiscated goods, including his own cargo. He grinned. "Hello, old friends." His ship's AI, patched into his wrist comm, whispered, "Inventory confirmed. All contraband intact. Also, the king's lizard is watching you." Sharpe waved at the lizard. It blinked twice, then scurried away. The mirror moment. Back in his suite, Sharpe stood before a mirror, dressed in ceremonial robes, sipping alien whiskey. Behind him, the palace shimmered with tension. The sisters plotted. The king unraveled. The staff prayed for a meteor strike. Sharpe smiled at his reflection. "They think I'm choosing between them," he said to the AI. "But I'm choosing something else entirely." "Freedom?" the AI asked. "Profit," Sharpe replied, "and maybe a good story." Chapter 4. The Wedding Spiral. The palace of Gatheria had never seen such chaos wrapped in lace. Preparations for the dual royal wedding began with a flurry of announcements, holographic invitations, and ceremonial arguments over flower species. Velva wanted carnivorous orchids. Ninal demanded flame lilies genetically engineered to glow in the dark. The royal florist wept openly. Jonathan Sharpe, the groom-to-be, spent his days lounging in his gravity hammock, sipping alien whiskey and offering creative input that only made things worse. "I think the vows should be sung," he said one morning, "by a choir of exiled diplomats." The wedding planner fainted. Theater of the absurd. The palace transformed into a stage for competing fantasies. Velva commissioned a floating altar shaped like a phoenix mid-scream. Ninal hired a troupe of dancers trained in zero-gravity ballet. The rehearsal dinner featured 12 courses, each representing a different planetary rebellion. Sharpe requested a toast made from fermented solar flares and a speech written by his ship's AI. The AI delivered a draft titled "Love in the Time of Strategic Advantage." The king, meanwhile, continued unraveling. He held emergency meetings with his advisors, who offered solutions ranging from fake a meteor strike to declare war on romance. He tried banning the wedding. The princesses threatened to elope. He tried bribing Sharpe. Sharpe asked for a pet moondragon and a diplomatic immunity cloak. The king gave him both. Sharpe's endgame. Behind the scenes, Sharpe was orchestrating his escape. He had already reprogrammed his ship's AI to initiate a stealth extraction protocol, smuggled his cargo out of the royal vault using a network of bribed servants, planted rumors that the wedding was cursed by a forgotten deity of betrayal. He wasn't just escaping. He was leaving with everything: his ship, his goods, a fortune in credits, and the palace's dignity in tatters. The king's offer. 2 nights before the wedding, King Thorn summoned Sharpe to the Royal Observatory, a glass dome overlooking the city, where stars blinked like judgmental ancestors. "I can't lose my daughters," the king said, voice trembling. "They're difficult." "But they're mine." Sharpe raised an eyebrow. "You want me to walk away? I'll give you your ship, your cargo, and a fortune in credits. Just leave them behind." Sharpe paused. "You're asking me to jilt 2 princesses at the altar?" The king nodded. "I'll throw in a moon." Sharpe smiled. "Make it 2. The reluctant departure. On the morning of the wedding, Sharpe stood at the palace gates, dressed in ceremonial robes, surrounded by chaos. The princesses waited in twin hover chariots. The guests buzzed with anticipation. The king looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Sharpe turned to the crowd. "I regret to inform you, I'm leaving." Gasps, screams. One advisor fainted into a cake. Sharpe boarded the indecent proposal, now gleaming with upgrades and loaded with contraband. As the ship lifted off, he turned to his AI. "I don't know what my 5 wives on those 5 other planets would do if I showed up with 2 more. The AI replied, "Statistically, kill you." Sharpe grinned. "Then let's not test the odds." The ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a palace in mourning, a king in therapy, and 2 princesses who would never forget the man they couldn't tame. Chapter 5. The Escape. The hyperspace trail behind the indecent proposal shimmered like a broken promise. Jonathan Sharpe reclined in the captain's chair, boots on the console, sipping a cocktail made from fermented starlight and diplomatic betrayal. "Status?" he asked. His ship's AI replied, "Cargo secure." Credits transferred, reputation volatile. Sharpe grinned. "Just the way I like it." Reverberations across the stars. News of the jilted royal wedding spread faster than a scandal in zero gravity. Across the galaxy, headlines blared, "Pilot Pet turns palace to pulp, Gatheria in mourning." Green-skinned sisters left at the altar. Again? Jonathan Sharpe, lover, liar, legend. Sharpe's face appeared on wanted posters, romance novels, and a new line of perfume called Untamable. He was banned from 3 more systems and invited to 5. On the moon of Vistellon, a cult formed around his escape strategy. On the asteroid colony of Nix Delta, a playwright began scripting The Rogue Who Ruined Royalty, a tragicomedy in 6 acts. Sharpe watched it all unfold from orbit, amused and mildly concerned. The princesses pursue. Back on Gatheria, Velva and Ninal were not mourning. They were mobilizing. The sisters, now co-commanders of a royal cruiser named the Wrath of Elegance, launched a pursuit mission. Their goal: retrieve the rogue, reclaim their dignity, and possibly vaporize his favorite jacket. Sharpe's AI intercepted their transmission. Target: Jonathan Sharpe. Status: emotionally unavailable. Objective: capture or seduce. Sharpe raised an eyebrow. "They're still undecided." "Affirmative," the AI replied. "Also, they've hired a poet assassin." Rendezvous on Kirellon. Sharpe docked at Kirellon, a neutral planet known for its black market diplomacy and excellent seafood. He met with one of his other wives, Tessa, an arms dealer with a fondness for sarcasm and orbital sabotage. They dined on grilled starfish and traded war stories. "You jilted royalty," Tessa said. "Again." Sharpe shrugged. "They wanted a pet. I'm more of a wildfire." She slid a data chip across the table. "New job. Smuggle a prototype weapon to the outer fringe. High risk, higher payout." Sharpe pocketed the chip. "I'm in, but I might have company." Tessa raised an eyebrow. The Green Twins? Let's just say they're emotionally invested. Strategic adjustments. Back aboard the indecent proposal, Sharpe recalibrated his escape protocols. He rerouted his hyperspace path through a nebula known for scrambling pursuit signals. He activated decoy drones shaped like himself, complete with charming smirks and misleading coordinates. He also began drafting a memoir, How to Escape a Royal Wedding and Still Get Paid. The AI offered a subtitle, A Guide to Emotional Evasion and Tactical Romance. Sharpe approved. Closing beat. As the ship prepared to jump again, Sharpe stood at the viewport, watching the stars shift. They'll chase me, he said, across systems, through scandals, into legend. The AI replied, and they'll never catch you. Sharpe smiled. Not unless I let them. The stars blurred. The ship vanished. The chase continued. Chapter 6. The Reckoning Drift. The stars outside the viewport of the indecent proposal pulsed like distant warnings. Jonathan Sharpe leaned against the console, sipping a cocktail made from fermented starlight and regret. The ship hummed with quiet efficiency, but the AI's tone had shifted. 3 pursuit signals detected, it said. 1 royal cruiser, 2 freelance bounty ships, all converging. Sharpe raised an eyebrow. Freelancers? Your Gatherian stunt has gone viral. You're trending in 6 systems. 1 bounty hunter claims to be your ex-wife. Sharpe sighed. Which one? Unclear. She's using the alias Emotional Consequence. The past unfolds. Sharpe retreated to his quarters, where holograms of past escapades flickered across the walls, weddings, heists, betrayals, and one unfortunate poetry slam. He reviewed his escape routes, cross-referenced them with known grudges, and realized something unsettling. He wasn't just being chased, he was being studied. The princesses had upgraded their tactics. Velva had hired a strategist from the war moons of Drax. Ninal had enlisted a romantic psychologist who specialized in seduction warfare. Their cruiser, the Wrath of Elegance, now boasted emotional tracking sensors and a sarcasm filtration system. Sharpe's charm was no longer a shield, it was a signature. The trap at Lornis Drift. He diverted course to Lornis Drift, a rogue asteroid station known for its neutrality and excellent stakes. But neutrality was a myth, and the stakes were a trap. As he docked, a welcoming party greeted him with smiles and stun rifles. The bounty hunters had arrived first. Sharpe ducked into a ventilation shaft, crawled through a spice duct, and emerged in a nightclub themed after failed revolutions. He bribed a DJ with encrypted credits and slipped into the crowd. The AI buzzed in his ear. Princesses inbound. ETA, 6 minutes. Sharpe scanned the room. He needed a distraction. He found one, a karaoke stage and a crowd hungry for scandal. The Rogues' Reversal. Sharpe took the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, I dedicate this next song to all the people I've disappointed. Which is, most of you. He launched into a satirical ballad titled Love Me, Leave Me, Chase Me, complete with holographic backup dancers and a chorus of emotionally conflicted aliens. The crowd roared. The bounty hunters hesitated. The princesses arrived mid-verse. Velva froze. Ninal blinked. Sharpe winked. Then he vanished in a cloud of glitter and smoke, courtesy of a female stage technician he'd kissed an hour earlier. The escape within the escape. Back aboard the indecent proposal, Sharpe initiated a double-blind hyperspace jump, one that routed him through a wormhole disguised as a nebula. The AI warned him it was unstable. So am I, Sharpe replied. The ship lurched. Time bent. Reality hiccuped. When they emerged, they were in uncharted space. No signals, no pursuers, just silence. Sharpe exhaled. That bought us time. The AI replied, Not much. They're adapting. Sharpe stared at the stars. Then it's time I stop running. Closing beat. He opened a secure channel to an old contact, a mythmaker named Solari, who specialized in rewriting reputations. I need a new legend, Sharpe said, one they won't see coming. Solari replied, You want to become the hero? Sharpe smiled. No, I want to become the myth. Chapter 7. The Mythmaker's Gambit. Uncharted space was calm, too calm for a man like Jonathan Sharpe. He paced the bridge of the indecent proposal, watching the stars drift past like indifferent gods. The AI had gone silent, calculating probabilities. The ship's systems hummed with tension. Somewhere out there, the princesses were closing in, and they weren't coming for closure. They were coming for conquest. Enter the Mythmaker. Sharpe opened a secure channel to Solari, the Mythmaker, an ex-propagandist turned narrative mercenary. Solari appeared as a shimmering hologram, draped in robes, stitched from scandal and half-truths. You want a new legend, Solari said, one that rewrites the Gatherian fiasco. Sharpe nodded. I want to be the man they couldn't tame, not the man who ran. Solari smirked. Then we start with a leak. A story, a scandal that makes you untouchable. They drafted a counter-narrative. Sharpe was never a pet. He was a political prisoner. The princesses were rivals in a dynastic war, using him as a pawn. His escape wasn't betrayal, it was survival, a quest for freedom. Solari seeded the story across pirate networks, gossip channels, and rogue news feeds. Within hours, the galaxy was buzzing. The galaxy reacts. On the moon of Virelon, protesters wore cloaks modeled after Sharpe's signature look. On Nyx Delta, a pop star released a song titled Untamable Heart. The Gatherian royal court issued a statement calling Sharpe a manipulative rogue with delusions of grandeur. Sharpe printed it on a T-shirt. Meanwhile, neutral systems began debating his status. Was he a criminal? A folk hero? A cautionary tale? Sharpe didn't care. He was building momentum. The princesses pivot. Velva and Ninal, watching their reputations unravel, changed tactics. They abandoned pursuit and began a media campaign of their own. Interviews, holographic press conferences, tearful testimonials. They painted Sharpe as a seducer, a saboteur, a man who weaponized affection. Sharpe responded with a memoir excerpt. I never promised forever. I promised fireworks. The princesses doubled down. They offered a bounty, not for his capture, but for his diary. Sharpe laughed. They want the story more than they want me. The alliance of the unaligned. Sharpe received a message from an unlikely source. The Syndicate of Unaligned Systems, a coalition of fringe planets tired of royal politics and emotional warfare. They offered him sanctuary, a platform, and a new mission. Help them craft a mythic identity, a rogue's republic, a place for the untamable. Sharpe considered it. He'd never led anything but a good escape. But the idea of becoming a symbol, of turning chaos into legacy, was tempting. The AI chimed in. Probability of betrayal, 72%. Probability of glory, 28%. Sharpe grinned. I've bet on worse odds. Closing beat. As the indecent proposal drifted toward the Syndicate's flagship, Sharpe stood at the viewport, watching the stars shift. They wanted a pet, he said. Now they've got a legend. The AI replied, Correction, a legend in progress. Sharpe raised his glass. To progress. And to the next chapter. Chapter 8. The Republic of Rogues. The Syndicate's flagship, the unaligned dream, was a marvel of contradiction. half warship, half art gallery, orbiting a planet that refused to name itself. Jonathan Sharpe stood on its observation deck, watching diplomats, smugglers, and exiled poets argue over the meaning of freedom. He had become their icon, their rallying cry, their myth, and it was starting to unravel. The burden of legend, Solari, the mythmaker, had done his job too well. Sharpe's image now adorned murals, manifestos, and recruitment posters. People quoted him out of context. A rebel faction called the Untamables began demanding he lead a campaign against Gatheria. Sharpe refused. "I'm not a general," he said. "I'm a distraction with good hair." But the Republic wanted more than charm. They wanted direction, purpose, a hero who could unify chaos. Sharpe felt the pressure mount. The AI warned him. "Your legend is diverging from your reality." Sharpe replied, "That's how legends work." The princesses escalate. Velva and Ninal, watching their influence wane, launched a counter-myth. They released a documentary titled The Rogue Who Lied, featuring dramatic reenactments, tearful interviews, and a musical number called Pet Me Not. They also began funding rogue factions within the syndicate, sowing discord and doubt. Sharpe's allies started turning on each other. Debates erupted over his motives, his past, and whether he'd ever truly loved anyone. Sharpe watched it all unfold, sipping alien whiskey and wondering if poetic justice had a sense of humor. The fracture. The syndicate held a summit. Sharpe was asked to speak. He stood before a crowd of thousands, pirates, diplomats, romantics, and cynics. He wore his signature cloak and a smirk that had started to feel heavy. "I never asked to be your symbol," he said. "I'm not here to lead. I'm here to remind you that freedom isn't tidy. It's messy, selfish, and sometimes it looks like betrayal." The crowd erupted. Some cheered, some booed, some threw roses, one threw a shoe. Solari whispered, "You've split them." "That's power," Sharpe replied. "That's exhaustion." The quiet escape. That night, Sharpe slipped away from the unaligned dream. He boarded the indecent proposal, now upgraded with stealth tech and emotional shielding. The AI asked, "Destination?" Sharpe paused. "Somewhere quiet, somewhere forgotten." The ship jumped. Closing beat. In the silence of deep space, Sharpe sat alone, watching stars drift past like memories. His legend echoed behind him, louder than truth, faster than regret. "They wanted a hero," he said. "I gave them a story." The AI replied, "And they'll rewrite it without you." Sharpe smiled. "That's the beauty of myth. It doesn't need permission." Chapter 9. The Forgotten System. The system had no name, just a string of coordinates and a reputation for being ignored. Jonathan Sharpe drifted into orbit around a dead moon, its surface littered with the ruins of failed utopias. He wasn't hiding. He was decompressing. The galaxy had turned him into a symbol, and symbols didn't get to rest. He walked the moon's surface alone, boots crunching on dust older than memory. The silence was welcome, the solitude earned. But peace never lasted. His AI pinged. Incoming transmission, encrypted, emotional signature, familiar. Sharpe sighed. Put it through. It was Ninal. No threats, no tears, just a message. "You were never ours, but you were never just yours either." Then the transmission ended. The reckoning. Sharpe sat beneath a shattered obelisk, watching the stars. He thought about the princesses, the Republic, the mythmaker, the wives on 5 other planets. He thought about freedom, and how it always came with a cost. He'd escaped everything, except consequence. The AI spoke softly. "You could disappear. Let the myth live without you." Sharpe shook his head. "Not yet." One last move. Chapter 10. The Man They Couldn't Tame. Sharpe returned to the edge of Gatherian space, not to surrender, but to perform. He hijacked a royal broadcast channel and appeared live across the galaxy, dressed in his signature cloak, standing aboard the indecent proposal. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm not a villain. I'm a mirror. You saw what you wanted. I gave you what you feared." He paused. "And now I'm leaving. Not running. Departing. Because legends don't stay. They echo." Then he transmitted a data burst, a manifesto, a map of neutral systems, and a guide titled "How to Stay Untamed." It spread like wildfire. The final jump. As the princesses watched from their cruiser, as the Republic debated his words, as 5 wives rolled their eyes across 5 planets, Sharpe initiated his final jump. Destination unknown. The AI asked, "Any regrets?" Sharpe smiled. "Only that I didn't charge admission." The stars blurred. The ship vanished. Epilogue. Echoes. Years later, stories of Jonathan Sharpe still circulated. A rogue who turned romance into rebellion. A pilot who weaponized charm. A legend who refused to be domesticated. Some say he lives on one of his 2 moons, sipping alien whiskey and laughing at history. Others say he became a god in a system that doesn't believe in gods. But everyone agrees on one thing. He was the man they couldn't tame. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.